Hi everyone, welcome to Ask Amy on a Tuesday. Had a little change of plans yesterday, so I'm here on a Tuesday for you. I have a question today that was text to me, so I'm going to read it off my phone from Melanie. And Melanie says, "Hi Amy, I love your work. Both of your books have seen me through anxiety and breast cancer. I wondered if you could help me with my latest problem, which is infidelity. My husband of 40 happy years had an online emotional and sexual love affair for 4 months through an online game. We had gone off the rail the last 6 months. It's over now. He loves me and wants to move on, but I've seen photos of this woman and messages between them. I've also found out from her husband on Facebook about it, so it was traumatic to say the least. I wondered if you could do a video or something on the subject." So she just kind of asked me to speak to this a little bit. And couple things I want to give you, Melanie, for whatever it's worth, and I don't know how to make you not think about it. I don't know how to, I don't know that anyone knows that, right? How to help you get over it, how to not think about it anymore, how to move on. But two things come up as I read that. One is sort of this tendency we have to know how we think, like our own thinking comes to life within us, right? So we just have this flood of thought brought to life every single moment of every day, our entire lives. And it just looks like the way it is. And it is in our heads, the way it is in our heads, right? But it's not the way it is. It's not the way it is for him or her or anyone else in the world. It's not the way it is in any kind of bigger objective sort of way. It's our reality coming from our own thinking in that very moment. And that's all well and good. We can kind of see something about that and see how that works. But where we tend to kind of get a little mixed up with this, I think sometimes, is our own experience comes to life within us in such a vivid, real, emotional way where it absolutely looks like it. There's no question even that it's life doing this to us, or that anyone would feel this way, or that, of course, I feel this way, or whatever that is. And we can get in this place where it's like, and I don't know that you're here, you didn't say this, this is again, just kind of what occurs to me around an issue like this, is it's very easy to get in a place where we're like, well, it clearly means ... Or I would have never ... If I were in that situation, if I were feeling attracted to someone from an online game, I would have respected my marriage and ended it. I would have been honest about it. I would have never let it happen for 4 months. And again, I'm not saying that you're saying this, Melanie, you didn't say any of this, but it's just where minds tend to go, right? We're very predictable creatures. We're all the same. Our minds go in very, very similar, consistent kind of places. So it's either like, well, I would have done it this way. I can't believe he, or I can't believe she, or I would have never. Or the whole thing of like, it clearly means if we had a solid relationship, this never would have happened. If he respected me, this never would have happened. If this, it never would have happened. Or this obviously means we have some deeper issues. This obviously means ... Again, whatever the ... is. So that is just so darn human. So human. I mean, we all experience stuff and we don't even do it. We're not even doing it. Our minds do it. Our brains do it. It's like in an instant, all this meaning comes in and all this meaning gets attached to what we just thought and experienced. And we have this way of just being locked into that right away. Like that explanation, all that meaning comes up in our minds and we're just like, yep, clearly, obviously, that's just the truth of it, right? So I just bring that up because I think that creates so much of our suffering, so much. And if we can kind of remember that our minds do that, you're not doing it, it's not a fault, it's not anything you can even really stop as far as I know, but to see, oh yeah, minds just make meaning of everything. They don't just take things at face value. They're just like, oh, this happened, that happened. No, everything has a meaning. And the meaning is always with us at the center of it. We're always in the middle of it. Whenever it's emotional, whenever it means anything to us, no question, you look, if you're feeling really emotionally invested in anything, and this is for any of us at any time, when we're feeling really emotionally invested in anything, your concept of yourself and who you think you are is right in the center of it. So all that meaning has a lot to do with you, Melanie, right? Like, or you're in your marriage or your marriage, right? Which is, again, all about you. So just see how that's just what a human mind does, and it just makes meaning out of things. It tosses you in there. It brings in all this emotional stuff. And that'll make it really tough because we see this reality that looks like, how in the world would I ever get over this? How will I ever move through this? How will I ever see this differently? And from in the middle of all that thinking, you're right. We can't see how that would ever happen. We're not in charge of making that happen. So we're just stuck there. It feels like, oh, I don't know. I'll never see this any differently, right? But if we can just have that little in where we see, oh, this is the meaning my mind has given it. This is the way it looks to me right now. But that doesn't mean it's how it looks to him. It doesn't mean it's how I'll always see it. It doesn't mean it's how it is. None of that. It's just simply how it looks to us right now in this moment. Huge, huge, huge difference. Huge difference. Reading your question, Melanie, I was just thinking of how often we all do things. Now, I'm not at all excusing what your husband did, but I'm just want you to feel into this. How often we all do and say things that at some point later we look back, sometimes really quickly, we look back and we know it means absolutely nothing. Like, there have been so many just random comments I've made, right, that someone hears and they hear it in a certain way that they're really, really affected by that. Really affected by it. Really affected by it. I don't have to explain that anymore, I guess, right? But for me, I can look back and be like, oh, you're still thinking about that? I didn't even mean that. Not that I'm lying, but like, it just came out of my mouth, or it's just like, oh, I just did that. It just what occurred to me at the time. Or even with people, and again, I'm not at all making excuses saying like, oh, people have affairs, it's fine. You don't know what you're doing and it doesn't mean anything. I'm not making light of it in that sense, but I do want you to kind of see how, I can think again back to people when I was single that I had all these emotions for, and the next thing I knew I didn't. I get, okay, well, that, I don't know what that was, but from the thinking I was in, that looked real, that looked big, that looked meaningful, that looked very attractive or very unattractive. And then thinking shifts, and suddenly you're like, it's just nothing for you. So just kind of know that minds can work that way. From the thinking he was in, he did what he did, right? You guys are working that out together. I don't know what else to say about that. From the thinking he was in, what he did made sense to him from that thinking. But he's not still in that thinking. If he said, as you say, it's over, he's committed to you, like, it's easy for us to kind of put them still in that thinking. I can't believe you did that. And I can't believe you let that happen. I can't believe it went on for so long. But likely, if he really is over it, it's done, and he's now committed to you, like, he could be looking back at that and saying the exact same thing you are, like, how the heck did that happen? That means nothing. I can't believe that happened. And so again, this applies to so much that in any kind of relationship, in any kind of thing, like, we can just get so caught up in how things looked at one particular time, but that means nothing really. It just is how life came up for us, how life came to life for us at that particular time. And then thinking shifts, and we move on, and we can have a completely different reality, see things completely differently. Does that mean you don't have stuff to work through? No. I mean, you deal with it within your marriage however you need to deal with it. But I think it's so helpful to see that, because when we're hurt and we're traumatized, like you said, by something like that, it is so natural for a hurt traumatized mind to just keep going back and assume and playing that out, like, I can't believe he, and what must you have been thinking, and what does this mean, and a mind just wants to keep going back there, and even that, it's just the way our mind's trying to heal itself. It just repeats the same old stuff over and over again, but it kind of goes back there and kind of churns on it, and there's something really well-meaning in that. There's something really kind of like our mind's trying to help us, but we don't need to go back and sit in the trauma and just have it churning over and over again. So that your mind goes back to this and finding the pictures you found and how you found out, yes, I totally understand how traumatic that can feel, and that your mind's going to want to keep going there because it thinks if it goes there enough, maybe it'll see a clue, maybe it'll think your way out of this. But it just doesn't work that way. It works that your mind goes there, but then it kind of like, that's not where your freedom comes from. So see that, the trauma you're still feeling, the flashbacks you're feeling, all that old stuff that'll come up as you're moving through this together. Just know it's just your mind trying to help you. It's just trying to go back there and kind of think your way out of this, but that's not really where the peace and the freedom come from. They come from another place. They come from, eventually your mind just stops going there. Even with your mind going there, eventually you see, okay, that's not helpful. That's not necessary. The other thing that came up, Melanie, as I was reading your question, is just as much as possible, and this is not going to always be possible, and that's fine, but kind of along those lines, being here now, like if it's over and he's recommitted and you guys are here right now, noticing where your mind wants to go back, go forward, start doing all that meaning stuff that it does, start doing all that regurgitating to try to reframe and all that stuff your mind's trying to do to help you. But also seeing that, okay, again, right now, you have a husband of 40 years that you've had 40, or let's just say 39, because you said 6 months were kind of off the rails, 39 and a half happy years with. And then a little blip where it wasn't so great. And now you're back together, recommitted. It's not always going to be easy, but it's like here, now. If you had amnesia, how would you feel about the person right in front of you? Now, please don't hear that as forget it all, have amnesia, just like, pretend it didn't happen. It's the opposite of what I'm saying. Past is the past. Whatever happened, happened, and you've both learned from it. Your current moment thinking and wisdom and common sense are informed by that. We don't need to keep revisiting it and pulling it into the present. It's like it's come up, it's happened, it's done its job. Now you do get to be present. And that doesn't mean, again, that your mind won't go back and it won't be a process of getting over this. I'm sure it will. That's fine. That's normal. But just kind of notice for yourself. Like, okay, if I didn't know what happened, if it didn't happen, because again, who knows how it looks in his mind and anybody's mind, like it doesn't have this inherent meaning. If you're just right here now with the person in front of you, what's possible there? Like, what do you feel when you're in that place? And again, I'm not saying you'll be there all the time, but it's an interesting question to even bring in. It's an interesting place to even look. Like, oh yeah, we can all do that with so much. Like any kind of hard thing, relationship upset, trauma, any of us experience, even just in our own lives with our own selves, something we regret or something that happened in the past or something we're still grieving from the past. It's like, we're going to feel all that stuff. Wherever our mind goes is what we feel. But it's fascinating to kind of have a moment where you're like, oh yeah, but there's also life right here now, aside from all of that thinking, bigger than all of that. And if I forgot about this thing, or if I just wasn't thinking about it, then how do I feel? And again, almost just to notice that difference. It's not about being in that place of amnesia 24/7. That's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But just noticing the difference and seeing, oh, this is one experience, this is another experience. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between both probably. And it's all thought created. It's all just down to where my mind goes. So I hope that's helpful, Melanie. Again, I kind of just I didn't mean to put words in your mouth and say that you're putting all this meaning on it or thinking all this stuff. I just know what minds do. And there's a good chance your mind's probably done some of that at some point. Mine certainly has. I think everyone's does. So to just kind of keep those things in mind, hopefully it'll help you move through this a little more easily. So thank you so much for the question. Thank you guys all for your questions. Keep sending them. Ask Amy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com. I love getting them. I have some great questions lined up and I'm ready for more. So questions, anything you'd like to hear about, anything you're up against, or just topics you'd like to hear more about from this new paradigm, I'd love to speak to them. So thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.